Hello buddy, it's Bendominator and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about your guys' hot takes in Fortnite. I asked you guys a few days ago what your Fortnite hot takes were, and you guys gave me a ton of really good replies. And in today's video, I'm going to be looking at some of them and giving my opinions on your hot takes. Also keep in mind, since you guys sent a ton, I'm not going to be getting to all of them in this video. But if you guys do want me to react to your hot takes, be sure to leave a like on this video, because if I see this video is doing really well, I'll be sure to turn this into a series on the channel. Also, some of you guys went out of your way to make some really good responses, but just know I'm not going to be reading everyone's entire responses, just the main points. But if you want to pause the video and take a look at what these takes fully have to say, then feel free. And of course, before we get in the video, if you guys do end up enjoying it, be sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, because I make videos like this all the time, and you can also use my supporter credit code Bendominator in the Fortnite item shop #ad. Let's go ahead and get right into the video. So for our first take here, Eco Samurai says that the Visitor is the worst member of the 7. And with that, I think I might have to agree, though maybe I don't really like the Scientist as much. In terms of the 7 for me, I judged them mostly based off their design rather than their storyline relevance. But if you look at the Visitor's storyline relevance, I feel like the Visitor was a really good introduction to the 7, though he hasn't really done much since he initially came to the island and launched the rocket all the way back in Chapter 1, Season 4. But I would also argue there's other members of the 7 that also haven't really done that much either. Like, the origin is cool, but I feel like storyline-wise, there hasn't been much there either. But again, I don't really keep up with the storyline as much, so I wouldn't really know too much about that. But in terms of design, I think the Visitor is pretty cool, which is why I wouldn't rank him as my least favorite, though I could definitely see how people may have that opinion. Moving on to our next take, Advil says that Fortnite spoon-feeding us the storyline has ultimately made it worse and harder to enjoy, and with that I gotta agree. I'm not really a huge fan of the Fortnite storyline, and I feel like the way they've been handling it, especially as of recently, hasn't really been that great, and mostly has been just used to set up other things such as promotions and collabs and new seasons and all that kind of stuff. It kind of really just feels like a big marketing push to generate hype for new stuff, which I understand it's always kind of been that way, and I've never really been a huge fan of the storyline for that reason. I really wish Fortnite would just go out of their way to tell a consistent story instead of spoon-feeding it to us throughout multiple different seasons, events, different comic books, and all that kind of stuff. It just feels really disconnected the way it's been presented to us, and for that reason I haven't really been able to get invested into it. Moving on to our next take, Cynic says that Chapter 2 Season 1 was the best season of Chapter 2, and while I don't necessarily agree with this take, I do see how someone could come to that conclusion. It was definitely the least gimmicky season of the chapter, and when Chapter 2 was brand new and fresh, it was really fun. Like, Chapter 2 map on launch was amazing. I also thought the loot pool was really solid, even if it was very simplistic. It's just a shame that they didn't really add or change anything about the loot pool for the entire season. And I feel like outside of seasonal events, that entire season just felt really bland. And I feel like Fortnite really failed to keep the momentum going after that initial launch. And I honestly think Chapter 3 has done a much better job of keeping the momentum going since its initial release. So for that reason, I wouldn't consider Chapter 2 Season 1 my favorite when it comes to Chapter 2, but I do think it was pretty solid actually, especially when it comes to Chapter 2 standards. Next up here, Josie says that Chapter 2 Season 5 is the second best season of Chapter 2. And while I'm not sure where I'd actually rank that season in terms of my own Chapter 2 season rankings, I would agree that it was a very good Chapter 2 season. Yes, we had a lot of collabs during it, but I think a lot of the collabs were actually done really well, and I think we had enough original skins to balance it out, plus we see way more collab skins nowadays than we ever did back then. And in terms of gameplay and stuff, the map changes were all really good. The only area I didn't really like was the Coliseum, just because it was indestructible and people could just camp at the top of it. The Winterfest event was pretty good. I think bringing back planes for it was a really good idea, and I'm surprised they haven't really done it since. And yeah, the loot pool was also pretty fun. And yeah, overall, I'd say it was a pretty solid season. I'm not sure if I would agree with it being my second favorite, but I do think it was really good. Next up here, Adriel says, I like AI bosses, but hate Chapter 2 Season 2. In my opinion, I'm not a huge fan of AI bosses, though I do think that AI enemies can be done well in certain scenarios, though I do agree with the fact that Chapter 2 Season 2 was just not really a good season in my opinion, especially because of the AI. But it is an interesting take to say that you like AI bosses but don't like Chapter 2 Season 2, since that season was full of them, but I can understand how you could have this opinion because I feel like, well, Chapter 2 Season 2 introduced the AI stuff, it did it the worst out of every other season, and that's probably my biggest hot take of the video, but yeah, I just did not like how AI was used in that season, and honestly, it kind of ruined the experience for me. And I personally think that AI in Fortnite has improved a long way since it was introduced, with one of the symptoms of that being that the AI bosses have gotten much better over the years. And well, I'm not really a huge fan of them, I can understand how other people may enjoy them. Next up, Nightkeeper says, Chapter 2 Season 2 is extremely overrated, which kind of builds up the last one, but yeah, I do not like Chapter 2 Season 2 either. I don't think it was a really good season. In fact, it was probably one of my least favorite in Chapter 2, and in terms of the entire game. Though I could see why people like it. That season definitely has a lot of personality to it, and it introduced a lot of brand new POIs, probably some of the best map changes we saw during Chapter 2. I just didn't really like a lot of those POIs, and the AI just really bogged it down for me. Not to mention that the UI with the whole Battle Pass stuff was just not it for me. I feel like it was really clunky, and they just didn't really add a lot of interesting stuff throughout the season. Also, it was the first season where LTMs were pretty much completely absent and replaced by this new mode of LTMs, which in today's case isn't that bad, but back then it really sucked to not have LTMs be there. But nowadays I would take literally any LTM at all. Moving on, Verity says, hot take, Chapter 1 is the worst chapter, and that is definitely a very hot take, and I personally don't agree. I think Chapter 1 was pretty solid for the most part. I think it had some of Fortnite's best seasons, some of Fortnite's highest highs, and maybe some of its lowest lows. But overall, I think it was a really, really good chapter, and honestly, I would take almost anything over Chapter 2. Did Chapter 2 have some amazing seasons? Yes, but I feel like Chapter 2 had the longest content droughts ever. I feel like it had a lot of seasons that were just really bland, or lots of seasons that just had mechanics that made me enjoy the game less. So I would have to pick Chapter 2 as my least favorite chapter. I'm not saying it's terrible, but it definitely is my least favorite out of the 3 thus far. This next hot take comes from Lexa #1 Skin saying, Chapter 2 Season 3 sucked. And I'm gonna have to do a hard disagree with this being one of my favorite seasons of all time. Honestly, yeah, Chapter 2 Season 3 probably is my favorite season of all time, which is kind of funny considering the fact that I just said Chapter 2 is my least favorite chapter, but this season was really good in my opinion. Is there problems with it? Absolutely, but this season just hit all the right spots for me for a good Fortnite season, and also just has so much nostalgia tied to it for me. And yeah, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This season was nostalgic when it came out for me, and it's still nostalgic now, and nostalgia will always play a huge factor in my love for Chapter 2 Season 3. But man, I just made so many good memories when playing that season, and I don't know if there's ever gonna really be a season that tops it for me, to be honest. Next hot take comes from Arcape on Twitter saying, many trending maps in Discovery only get there because of clickbait TikToks talking about the insane amounts of XP you can get for playing. And I will agree, I think a lot of maps on Discovery do suffer this problem, and I think Discovery as a whole is just an incredibly flawed system at the moment and has been completely mishandled by Epic, and this is definitely a symptom of that. These maps that are getting to the top because they have fabled XP glitches or give insane amount of XP, it's just kind of crazy. And as I predicted before it came out, people are definitely taking advantage of the accolades, and Epic isn't really doing much to stop it. So yeah, I definitely agree with this take. Next take comes from Razor saying, bundles have been so bad this season that they only put skins that everybody plays. For example, Midas in the anime pack and Aura in the last winter pack, that they just feel really boring. And yeah, I'd argue that honestly bundles as a whole lately have just been feeling really boring, not just this season, but previous seasons, and even all the way back as Chapter 1. There's been so many skin bundles that just reskin these super popular skins. And while it's cool when you see a skin that you really like in one of these bundles, I feel like for the most part, a lot of these skins are just the most popular skins. And I understand why Epic does that. It makes them a ton of money to sell these popular skins again as new versions because people are going to want them because they sell the best. But I think it's also important to consider that there's a good amount of bundles that also sell skins that aren't as popular. So I don't think every single bundle is like this. So yeah, I would kind of agree with this one half and half. Some bundles aren't great, but some bundles are also pretty good. But I would agree that reskinning really popular skins is a problem, though I wouldn't say that every single bundle is like this. Maybe the majority, sure, but not all of them. So I half disagree, half agree, if that makes sense. Next up, Full Moon says, OP things like guided missiles, tanks, etc. are more fun in the game than when Epic tries to balance it. And I kind of understand this one, but I'm gonna have to disagree here. I think a lot of OP items can be really annoying, especially when vehicles are OP. I think those can be the worst offenders. Even this season, you have things like the goo gun that feel a bit too strong than they should be, but I also kind of agree that it's not really fun when Epic tries to ultra balance everything either, because at that point the game can kind of be a little bit boring and the weapons that they introduce aren't as fun and as interesting. When Epic is trying to make the game as balanced as possible, they do really weird decisions like nerfing snipers and nerfing shotguns into the ground. It's like, I feel like they don't really know exactly how to balance the game perfectly to where it's still fun. You kind of got to make that balance of luck and skill that Fortnite's so famous for, and that can be definitely really hard to do. So I will say that I think it's important for Epic to reach a middle ground of OP items and balanced items. I don't think anything should be outright OP, like how the tanks and guided missiles were, but I do think that there should be items that are a little bit more fun and strong. The goo gun's a good example of this, though I do think they should nerf it just a tiny bit, and I think having more fun items like this do make the game a bit more interesting than it is when it is completely balanced. So this is another one that I kind of agree with but kind of don't, but overall I could definitely see where you're coming from. Next up, Profound Ending says exclusivity is a good thing and more skins should be made permanently exclusive and not just battle pass ones. Now exclusivity is a bit complicated because while on one hand it's really fun to discuss exclusive skins, it's a really big problem in the Fortnite community for people of the community to resell these exclusive skins or scam people by offering them, which I think is a big reason why Fortnite doesn't really do exclusive skins much anymore. Back in the days when Skull Trooper was really rare and you had skins like that, people would sell and buy accounts, which was a big problem, and not to mention exclusivity is just another one of those tactics that Epic Games uses to get people to buy skins when they come back after being rare for a long time. So I wouldn't really necessarily consider exclusivity and skins to be a consumer-friendly tactic for Fortnite to use when it comes to their cosmetics. So I'm gonna have to disagree with this though. I can definitely see where you're coming from. Next up, Vort says that collab skins are better than original skins, and to me I feel like it just depends on the skin. Like, I feel like there's no way to compare both of them. I don't really mind collab skins that much anymore. I just really don't like it when collab skins are more prominent than original skins because I really like seeing the original stuff that Fortnite has to offer, and their survey skins prove that there's still a lot of original cool designs out there that Fortnite could add to the game. But at this point I find it hard to complain since the game I feel like has struck a pretty good balance of collabs and original skins, and I don't really have a preference over one or the other. I use both pretty often. So for that reason I don't really agree or disagree. Next up, Horizon says that the BR should have never been added to creative, and in my opinion, I kind of agree. I think in the current state, there was no reason for them to add it to creative because it is practically useless, and I know there's glitches to get out of the map and edit the actual map, but since that's not really an intended feature, I don't really judge it based off that, and I think overall, having Creative Royale be a thing in the state it is currently isn't really helping anyone. Though I don't really think it's hurting anything much either. I think it's just kind of there. It's just kind of a useless mode. Though I do think that having the BR map added to creative is something that you could actually edit and change and do all these different things with would be really, really cool. But in its current state, I would have to agree. Next up, GamerBox10 says Chapter 3 Season 1 was the worst season of the chapter, and Chapter 3 Season 3 was the best of this chapter. And I'm gonna have to disagree with this one. I think Chapter 3 Season 1 was probably the best season in my opinion for this chapter, but I will say that Chapter 3 Season 3 was very good, and I definitely think it was a good contender for the best season, though I just don't agree with that. But yeah, I definitely do think that Chapter 3 Season 3 was a good season, and I can definitely see how someone could consider it their favorite out of Chapter 3. I just really enjoyed Chapter 3 Season 1, its simplicity, and I also believe that the map was at its best during that season. But anyways, guys, those were all the hot takes that I had to talk about in today's video. If I didn't get to your hot take, I apologize, but if you want to see me cover more hot takes, be sure to leave a like on this video to let me know that you guys enjoyed it. If you guys are new to the channel and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe because I make videos like this all the time, and you can also use my supporter creator code Bendominator in the Fortnite item shop, #ad. Thank you guys so much for watching, have a great rest of your day, and goodbye.